Ciao tutti, my name is Andy Brown. I am the owner of Once in a Lifetime Travel, and I also have wonderful Italian themed subscription boxes called Andiamo. So these boxes, we deliver them every other month. They have a different Italian theme, and the last one was pasta. So I wanted to make sure that everyone that got their box knew exactly how to use their ingredients. It can look a little intimidating. Everyone received a pasta maker, a hand crank pasta maker at that. So I want to run through how to put that together, how to operate it, and also kind of show you how to whip up a really easy batch of your own homemade pasta. This is not rocket science, guys. This is super easy. In fact, my 7 and 8-year-old can run through this on their own without my help at all. So I'm going to show you how fun this is, how easy it is, and get all those questions answered. In the link below, I have a couple of things. We've got a link to one of my blog posts that goes over one of the recipes that I like to use, and it also has a pasta sauce there, so that's really fun. I'm also going to be putting a couple of links over on our Facebook page that will have more on pasta, more on recipes. So look at the links below. We've got our Facebook, we've got our blog posts, and of course, we got this going. Okay, so get your boxes out. Get your machines out and get ready to have some fun. We're going to start with the body of the machine here. No matter what pasta maker you have, it's fairly similar. This is where you're going to put your C-clamp into, right there. This is going to be where your hand crank goes. Kind of wiggle it, well, there we go, wiggle it in. And then this is where the magic happens. So a pasta maker will start out wide. You can see there's a pretty thick space right here. And you are going to be putting your pasta through multiple times. Each time you're going to make that space thinner and thinner. Now, my machine, for whatever reason, is backwards. I start at the 7 here, and every time I dial it down, there's 6 and 5. My space here becomes more and more thin. Most pasta makers will be the opposite. You will start at 1 as the widest and you will dial it up. I recommend never going to the thinnest number because it's just going to be really hard to work with and way too thin. I usually move this up to about 4 or 3. Let's put together the machine. You need to find a counter space, and mine's a little tight because it's a thick counter that you can put the C-clamp in. Like I said, I have to adjust mine really down to the last little bit. And you want to make sure this is nice and snug so that your machine doesn't slip in the middle of cranking. We put the hand crank in, and we are ready to start rolling. The numbers for adjustment are over here, and I want to just kind of run through that one more time. All right, we're going to zoom in on the numbers again. So again, on mine, I'm starting at 7. You'll be starting at 1. And with each time we take the pasta out, we're going to adjust that number. So there we're going to the 6, lifting it up, and then letting it rest back in. Okay, perfect. This little add-on can make rolling or cutting the pasta super easy. It slips on right here. After you've completed your pasta steps and you have a nice long sheet of pasta, you then switch your hand crank and you can push your pasta through here. Mine's squeaky. And out will come ribbons of pasta. Don't tell all the nonnas over in Italy that you're doing this because they will be aghast that we aren't cutting our pasta by hand. You can switch it, and you can use this fine-tooth, really thin spaghetti, but I find it is just kind of a pain and it clumps, and I prefer thicker ribbons anyway, but that you can use that as well. All right, here's where all the fun stuff starts. Making pasta is incredibly easy. It is simple and it only takes 3 ingredients. I use a wood cutting board too. You don't want to use like this marble countertop that we have. You want to try and stay away from plastic surfaces as well. So here we go. I'm making just a smaller portion right now. So I put 1.5 cups of flour, and don't worry, I'm going to post this recipe that will go along with the video. And for my Andiamo box subscribers, this is the same recipe that came in your In the Kitchen box from Cucina Povera. So we start with our little pile, and we are going to make a simple well. And this is not an exact science, so just make a well that we can put our oil and egg into. Again, this is a half recipe, so I've got 2 eggs. And egg number 2. There we go. And then we are going to use about 1.5 teaspoons of oil for this batch. And of course, I always am lecturing about oil. Even when making pasta, you want to make sure that you're using something really, really good. We're using olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil is the best. That is one area you don't want to be chintzy in. I'll do just a little smidge more here. And you're going to notice, depending on where you're living, what season it is, sometimes your pasta is going to seem a little bit dry, and if that's the case, you can go ahead and add more oil to it. So again, it's not a science here, guys. You just start going for it. It looks like I'm about to have a dam break here, so I'm going to open my well up a little bit more. And you're just going to start pushing a little bit of the flour in there. You want to just keep getting it incorporated. Don't worry if you are slow at this. You'll get the hang of it. So just keep incorporating a little bit more here and there. There we go. I am definitely not as proficient yet as our nonas, or some of my dear friends in Italy that have taught me how to do this, but it is still really fun. Okay, so you see we're starting to get things coming together. We've got about 1/3 of the flour mixed in here, and just keep going and going as much as you can with the fork. And then as you start to get a little bit stiffer, we're going to move on and we're going to do this with our hands. Okay. And I live in Montana, so my pasta tends to be a little bit dry, so I am going to pull a little of my flour out, because I already feel like it might be moving in that direction. So we're still doing the same thing, just incorporating everything. There. And so our texture is going to start to turn from being kind of mucky and mushy to more of a crumbly looking. So, see how we're crumbly? When we stick our finger in, nothing happens. We are going to start kneading and working the dough until it looks really elastic. You want it to bounce back. You also want it to look shiny. Those are the 2 things that you're looking for. And I'm not going to make you watch me do this whole thing, because usually it takes about 10 minutes to really get your dough worked well. So, you can see when we pull this apart, nothing happens. It's just tearing, no elasticity. It's kind of dry and flaky looking. All right, I am going to knead this for a little bit. know you've been kneading for a while and is really tempted to stop, but I want you just to look again at the texture here. We're still kind of flaking. It still has a dry look to it. When we pull it apart, it just isn't quite coming together. And then checking for elasticity, we're getting there. It's starting to bounce back a little bit, but not quite. So we're close, about halfway. So keep going, don't give up, take turns, have everybody help out. Makes it go faster. So just like magic, I wish you guys could feel this. It started to change texture in my hands. So this is starting to feel really soft. It's got more of a shiny texture to it. See how that bounces right back and my finger barely leaves a divot? We pull it apart. And it still breaks a little bit, but it feels much smoother. Just a very soft, smooth. Biggest thing, the bounce check. There we go, so we're almost done. So what you really wanna do is get into this and you wanna be breaking and separating the dough. So as you knead, I always use the palm of my hand, and if you need to kind of brace with the other hand, but you're going to really push out, and you want to get it in a couple directions. And then you're going to fold back on top of yourself and push out. And then fold again. Really using that strong, flat part of your hand. Now we have to make our pasta dough rest, and the minimum is an hour. So you want to make sure that you get your dough in a nice tight ball and then wrap it in some cling wrap or cellophane wrap and just let it sit for an hour. It's a perfect time to go get a glass of wine, start your pasta sauce, whatever you need to do. I have a little bit of the flour. This is what I'm using today is the semolina. And then I'm gonna just leave a little bit here because I might need to sprinkle this on our pasta. It's a little wet. But again, look at how that looks so pretty. Feels good. So you wanna start small when you first start doing this because it's hard to work the flour. Or excuse me, it's hard to work the pasta when you've got a big long chunk. So I'm gonna start really, really tiny. I'm gonna give it just a little dusting so that it doesn't stick to my machine. Okay, so remember, we're gonna start at the widest point of our machine. Mine is a 7, yours most likely will be a 1. And this first time, we are going to machine knead the pasta. So you're gonna put it through, crank and catch. Again, this is super tiny. And we are going to, I'm gonna stretch it because we need to do a tri-fold. So you fold it 3 times. Don't change your dial. You're gonna do this again. Again, we're kneading the pasta, we're machine kneading the pasta. Okay, one more time, tri-fold, and we're gonna crank that through. All right, so we are ready to move on to the next step, and that is the next number. So pull it out and make sure it's firmly in there, and the machine has actually gone just a hair more narrow. Move this here, just a second. Excuse me. All right, not too much, but a little bit longer, a little bit thinner. You're gonna do your second number. This is our second change. Go ahead and catch it. You're gonna do your third change. And catch it. See how we're getting a lot longer as we go. Do your fourth change, and depending on what you're making, this may be it for you. So you can see why you want to start, until you're really good at handling the pasta, why you want to start a little bit tiny, because these get really stretched out and long. Okay, so we are gonna stop here. Now you can do this 2 ways. I'm gonna dust this a little bit again because I wanna make sure that this does not fold on itself. I'm gonna show you how to hand cut the pasta. All right, so you're gonna roll to the middle, your imaginary middle line, roll to the middle, and then you're gonna wanna take a sharp knife, which is not this one. Let's do this one. And again, try to get it as even as you possibly can, but you are going to do a cut, cut, all the way down the length of your pasta. Then, and I can tell this is gonna stick a bit, you're gonna take your knife using the dull edge towards that imaginary middle, and you're gonna lift it up. Now, this guy needs some help. But if your pasta is just at the right texture, this will fall down on its own. So that is the traditional way of cutting your pasta. Okay, now I'll show you the other way. This is the cheating way. Take our attachment. We're gonna slip it onto here. We're gonna take another little piece, and again, this is just started working it, so it's a little bit wet. We're gonna go back to square one, the widest possible. You're gonna crank it through. One, fold it. Two, one more fold. That's three. Now we're gonna make our first change. Our second change. Our third change. And our last change, or fourth change in this case. All right, now we get a cheat. We switch our handle to our adapter. Sorry about the squeaking. Feed it through, and then catch it on the bottom. There you go. So you can probably guess which way I usually do it. I take a tray, if you don't have it, a nice little pasta drying rack, and you can dust it with a little bit of the flour, and then sprinkle a little bit more on. And I take it and do a nice little pile, and let that dry for a little bit before you cook it. So there we go. Number one, never clean your board with soap. You want to make sure that you are not leaving any residue that will affect the taste, texture of our precious pasta. So how do we do that? Easy. I always have a lemon on hand. Before I get to going, I give it a nice, good rub down. There we go. Nice, clean, fresh, and disinfected naturally. Number two, if you're like me, you're always in a hurry, and sometimes you decide to do things at the last minute. And if you have forgotten to keep your eggs at room temperature, grab a nice hot cup of water, put the eggs in there while you're gathering your ingredients, and they will be warmed up in a jiffy, and you'll be ready to go. Use good olive oil. I can't stress it enough. Do not use any of that store name knockoff brand. You don't have to go crazy and spend $1 million, but do make sure that you are getting EVOO, extra virgin olive oil. Technically, you should not keep it in a clear container like this. I go through it so fast that it's hardly in here for a few days. You want to keep your olive oil stored in a dark place and in a dark container. Okay, tip number 4, especially for you guys for your first time using your machines. How do you clean it? Well, we don't want to again add any kind of harsh cleaners that would change the pasta at all. So what you need to do with your pasta maker, especially the first time you get it, is just run some dough through it. You want to run the dough through all sections from left to right. Make sure that it's touched everywhere. That'll take care of any of the oils that are still left there from manufacturing and transportation.